I was told straight up that for the next 3 years, I wouldn't be promoted. Came home, I drafted an email and activated my network. I remember the title, It's Time for My Monumental Pivot.
Oh my God. What a hook. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hair X Friends We Got This podcast, where we share our thoughts on the pharmacy profession, experiences as healthcare providers, and explore our identities as two women of color going after it all.
As we share our stories, we hope you laugh, maybe cry, and feel inspired as you get to know us. Because at the end of the day, friends, we got this.
We got this, guys. Hello,
Hi,
everybody. For those of you who are new listening to us, my name is Thu.
Hi, y'all. My name is Saley.
And we're so happy to have you join us today. Today's topic is going to be a fun one. I don't remember why I thought of this. I think there's just been a lot of things going on. There's a lot of chaos in pharmacy. And so I thought it'll be a good time for us to discuss the time that we quit. And the title of this episode will be like, we quit. It'll be very dramatic. But it does feel very dramatic to quit something, especially a job that is probably one of the scariest things ever. In the last few years, we've both done some both made some big moves in our careers. I mean, it feels like they're big moves, at least for me. But, I left one job to go for another, and then you left to go back into fellowship.
Yes.
And then now you're doing something new, and we're going to learn all about that. But just the idea of like what it feels like to make that decision of like, we're quitting. We don't want to stay here anymore. And the lessons that we learned from it, because goodness gracious, I have learned quite a few things from doing that. Yeah. So it'll be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also like just going off of what our audience loves from us, it's just we're not constantly sharing about all the times he was just super perfect, roses and champagne. We're also talking about times where like we had to kind of match energy, like just be like, okay, well, this was working, this was fun, but it's not anymore. I'm out. And
Yeah.
I think the balance that our careers have forced us to have, but also the courage it takes to do this. I struggle with this quite a bit, but as we get started, I just have a question for you first.
Okay. Go ahead.
I want to start with a question.
Let's do
first.
Q&A. Yeah.
What are some things that kind of tell you, what are your cues generally, not even specifically to pharmacy, I would say, but in your life, as you walk through life as who you are, when do you kind of start to reconcile a situation and say, I have reached my breaking point, or I'm coming close to my breaking point? What are some of those things?
Well, I think a lot of it is through life experience, and a lot of it is finding out your identity. We had an identity episode filmed a while ago, and so you'll get to kind of hear all about my own recent identity awakening, crisis, whatever it might be for you. But I think that what I've recognized is one, like I just don't have enough time to deal with things that just don't feel good in my body or in my heart. And that's very hard to pinpoint exactly like what is that?
Yeah.
It's like you have to learn hard lessons to finally be like, I'm putting my foot down. And so I'll give you a very clear example. Like I've kind of gotten to this point in my life where one characteristics in people that I really cannot tolerate is flakiness. And people who are flaky or people who are not reliable.
Yes.
In my friendships and relationships and whatever, employment, anything, I want to be able to feel safe and feel like you're not going to flake on me. And I have gone through years and decades of my life tolerating people who are flaky, and I would make excuses for them.
Yes.
And I've noticed like my other friends would distance themselves from them, but I would be like, but they're nice and they're lovely and they're fun.
You have to be more understanding.
Exactly. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, that is energy draining that I cannot allow in my life anymore. Because I
Yes.
don't feel good when I make plans with people. Because I'm like, what if they don't show up? Like, I don't want to like experience that anymore, you know? And so nowadays, and I hate rejecting people and I hate letting things go. Like quitting
Yeah.
and letting things go is something that's very hard for me to do. I think it's just part of my like people pleasing tendencies. Like I don't want
Yeah.
to like make you feel bad, but
Mhm.
I've had to recognize that I need to put myself first. So I don't know if I necessarily answer your questions, but it's really life experiences that has taught me over and over and over again, like you do not like this and you don't actually have to put up with it. But I think that's the newest revelation is, oh, actually you don't have to put up with the things you don't like.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are things that you need to like learn how to put up with certain things, but just overall, like what can you tolerate and what can you not tolerate? And I've kind
Yeah.
of really come to terms with that.
And I think that we are currently, there's a lot more not a push. I don't want to say a push, but it's an acute awareness that as a society, we're not the most gracious. We don't give people the opportunity to prove or to rectify when they've crossed us off wrong,
It's
right?
very true.
I just haven't had that struggle. I have had the opposite struggle. I've had the opposite struggle of actually holding folks accountable, right? Like being able to actually say, I did give grace. And I think I give too much grace
Mm-hmm.
because when everybody else was hip to the music and they distanced themselves, I was
Mm,
just the one person that kept saying, like, I know you've messed up so badly, but I know your heart and I know your
I
heart's in
know.
the right place and I want you to do better. And, or you know what? I think maybe this was accidental because if you actually sat and thought about your actions, there's no way that this is what you would have done to me or you
Yeah.
would have allowed other people to do this to me. And that's always been like how I've kind of navigated
Mm-hmm.
adulthood. So when you get into a job, you're employed
Mm.
somewhere and quickly you want to belong. I don't think anyone thrives. I don't think anyone thrives off of being the outcast in any society.
No,
Like you
that's a major struggle. Yeah.
it's the really, I don't think I want to be known as the outcast or I want to embrace my position as the outcast. Even if I feel like I'm on my way to becoming the outcast, I'm working. I'm going to keep trying to find an ally and a way to integrate. So when you feel like you've made those relationships in this place and you've put your head down and you've worked hard, you've demonstrated your value and things that are happening that are just speaking to the opposite of you're not valued here. You're not valued here.
And
You're
that
doing
is,
all this work.
I think it just it comes down to like your needs, you know, like maybe for
Yeah.
you in relationships, you need to feel like you're valued and
Yes.
appreciated. And so do I. I think that's a very common thing. I think that certain people just have a higher tolerance of that. You know, growing up
Yes.
in an Asian household, we don't say I love you to each other, or especially our parents. We do not that is not a normal thing
Oh
that you
my
do.
gosh. Yes.
And so when you go into a workplace setting and you're not necessarily receiving a lot of the positive reinforcement,
Yeah.
then you're kind of like, I mean, I'm used to that. I can tolerate a lot of that. But, you know, I think what I've kind of realized though is like, but I do need that to like get motivated and I don't want to feel bad that I need those types of comments and
Talk
um
about it.
yeah,
Talk
like
about
reassurance.
it.
Because
Ah,
if you receive like if I feel like you've got my back and I feel like you are going to support me and you verbalize that and you show that, I am going to show up for you back, you know?
thank you.
Yeah.
What, why? Oh, talk about it. Why, why do you think, right? Like, why do you think that many of us expect that?
Expect what?
Expect our employers to have our backs. What
What? What
is,
do you mean why? I
yeah,
feel
no, because no, the reason why I asked
like
that
right.
question, right? It's because I've had a few jobs now. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that my employer has their own back.
Dude, I feel
Like
like if I don't trust that you have my back, if I
back,
don't trust that you have the department's best
back.
interest in mind, that's really hard for me to stay. And I've also, that's a lesson I had to learn as well. It's
Yeah.
like I'm working for you, but I don't trust you. And that
Yeah.
is like a weird feeling
Yes, it
because we're
is.
on the same team.
We're
I
on the
think.
same team. It's like I know that I am out here on my own by myself.
Yeah.
I know that. And I
Oh.
think and that we come right back to our first question. We come back to our first question because that's what I was trying to find out. For me,
Yeah.
if I I can have a sense of it, I may have an inkling of it, or maybe in a meeting, I felt like you could have spoken up for us more emphatically than that. We have a lot of evidence to dispel that misconception they have about our work and our role on this project. You let that ride. I don't like that. But I'm just going to make a mental note of that and keep my eye on you. That's not really
Yeah.
going to kind of break me. But the first time I find myself in the position where I know that I'm stepping into a meeting where it's me for me. You, as my manager, as my supervisor, as my co partner, as my project manager, you don't have my back. The moment that I don't just think that, but I have proof that that's the case,
Mhm.
I'm out.
Peace. Okay. Well,
Peace.
Jesus. All right. Well, this is going to be a really, I think this is going to be another vulnerable conversation.
Yeah.
Why do we always keep getting ourselves into this? Because I want to also like share some stories to give like specific examples too, because it's really hard to understand exactly like why don't you feel like you trust somebody. And
Yeah.
I'm going to try to do my best. I always get really scared though too when you're talking about an employer or whatever, even though I don't work for them anymore. It's like it's a balance between disclosing too much, but then disclosing enough so that our audience can learn from this too. So
Yes.
I'm still learning on how to do that gracefully. But before we jump into all of that, if
I
you're
just
watching on
knew it was
YouTube,
coming. I just knew it was coming. I really did. I was
okay,
like,
good.
I wonder if I want to be like, hey, Thu, did you
Oh,
forget something?
you're
But
gonna.
no, no,
It's right in here. It's
you're on
it's
it.
right in the chat box. But
You're on it.
before we jump into all of that, if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe, and give us a comment. And by the way, guess what? You can actually share your comments on Spotify now. So if you're listening
Yeah,
on Spotify as well, you can type in your little comments, and maybe we'll
yeah,
get back to you. And we want to have a whole conversation about what we're talking about here today. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, we would love it if you can rate and write a review and share our show to people and tell the people why we are the best people to listen to when you're walking around, playing with your dog, whatever it is that you do on your free time. All right?
yes.
Thank you in
We
advance.
need it. We need it. We love it. But these little gestures, these little
Hmm.
things that you do take our show so far.
Yeah.
And we are making progress. We are
Like,
growing
we would
and
not
we
be
are
here without you. I hope
at
that you guys
all,
realize that. We would
at
be
all.
talking literally to just each other. And then what's the point of
Like, oh, what a great conversation.
I
Okay,
know.
bye.
See you
Right?
next week.
But
Yeah.
right.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a question for you though. How comfortable do you feel in terms of sharing? Like
Oh, on this topic, I'll
on this
share
topic.
fully. On this topic, I'll share fully
And
because
why do you think that you are more comfortable than me? Like I still feel really scared.
oh, that's such a great question. I don't think I thought about it before. Um, like what is the I
Just to
think
be very honest and be like, this is what happened. You know, like
this
I'm
is what
still so
happened
nervous
because
about that.
so because I I'm not making it up. It really and truly is what I experienced. It really and truly is. And as a storyteller, I keep it in mind when I'm telling a story, I'm sharing my side of the story. I always remember like Everybody is the superhero in their own story. I always remember that. And when you're listening to this, yes, definitely take what I am saying with a grain of salt, because yeah, that's just how storytelling works. Everybody is the superhero of their own story. But I try to keep it very factual and try to not describe, put my emotions in there and just say factually, here's and what transpired.
Okay.
Um, but I
I mean,
don't
that helps
feel,
me because now
yeah,
that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you're right. There are three sides to every story.
yeah,
And I can definitely disclose like what I did wrong in a situation or what I could have done
yeah,
better or how I could have communicated better as well. Right. So there's
absolutely,
always something for us, everybody to learn at once. So,
100%.
okay. Well, all right. Well, let's jump into the moment that you realize your employer did not have your back. How about that? Just
Oh
jump right into the
man,
deep end.
just I I realized it as a result of witnessing what was happening to someone else.
Yeah.
I worked with a person that was going through an impossible season in their lives with their health. And to understand why I was so deeply affected by this, you also have to understand that, like, as an adult, I have never worked as a person without disability. I am a person with a unique ability where I do apply for FMLA. And okay, maybe I explain what FMLA is. FMLA is the Federal Medical Leave Act. And this is federal law that says that if you've worked, I believe, 1,250 hours in any given period within a year, you can ask your employer for either continuous leave or intermittent leave. And this leave protects your job. It's usually leave for your personal health, the health of a child, or your primary caregiver for somebody. So some ways that FMLA kind of gets utilized often is, I'm going to be 2 hours late for work. I'm going to use my FMLA for those 2 hours that I'm not going to be at work so that I'm not dinged for tardiness for that day. I'm not going to be able to come into work at all today because I'm taking my mom for surgical intervention. I'm going to use FMLA so that I don't use my PTO and I don't use my sick day and my job is protected. There's no penalty for this. It is this completely other entity of protection that is federal statute that has nothing to do. And you don't need to explain to the employer why you're using it. You don't need nothing. Once you call into the department and said, I won't be in today and I'm using FMLA, end of story. What I witnessed was someone who was using their FMLA within their legal right. And I think that they were being retaliated against for it.
Oh man,
I,
okay.
yeah, I found I already at baseline am very paranoid that because of my illness and because of my struggles that I cannot control, that employers view me as not dependable, someone that there always has to be a contingency plan around because you don't know, she could just get sick and be gone for 3 months. So we can't put her in charge or put her in positions that depend on somebody that has to be here all the time. Because of that reason, I carry a lot of feelings of inadequacies with me in my roles. I have to work extra hard to overcome this narrative that because I have a disability, I can't compete at the same level as everyone. I can't be productive at the same level of everyone. This person was one of the most high performing individuals in our department in their role, period. They got sick, was gone for an entire year to deal with their illness. When they returned, they were a completely different individual. They required help. They required support. They required assistance. They required for a department that I witnessed them work a million extra overtime shifts for to show up and support them through their unique need. And they didn't. They did not. In
Ugh.
fact, they actually strategically aligned themselves to push her out And she could see the writing on the wall, started looking for a job, and left because of it. Now,
Do
for
we
me
know
to,
what some of those behaviors were?
oh, yeah, well, she actually filled out doctor's notes and had full documentation as to why she couldn't work in certain areas. Those were not observed. And when she called and used her FMLA, sometimes she would get interrogated and asked to switch or get someone else to cover. These are illegal behaviors around this federal statute. This is illegal. You cannot do that, right?
What was the thing? I don't know if you know the answer, but what was the thing that made her feel pressure to leave? Do you know?
It
Just the
was
constant,
the
like, unsupportive
yes,
behavior? Yeah.
constant, constant. Despite going to HR, things didn't improve at all. Seeing that, seeing it, it wasn't happening to me. It wasn't happening to me. But I was fully aware that this could be me in like 2 weeks, in 2 years, in a month. My transplant could suddenly reject, and I'm back on dialysis, and I can't work full time, and I can't work 8 hours. Like, this can be me. I am not very far removed from this person at all as I'm watching it happen. And I was so disheartened by it. I was so hurt by it. It touched me in a way that I didn't expect it to, because something I'm paranoid about, I'm witnessing happening. It was confirming all of my fears. And I was like, I don't think this is the system. I think this is the place, and I cannot stay here.
So
I
you
cannot
think it
stay
was the
here.
system or
I
no?
think it was the place. It's
It
not
was
the
the
system.
people.
It was the people. It was the people.
Oh,
It was the
okay.
people.
Yeah.
It wasn't I don't think it was the system. I think it was the people. And it's it's unfortunate that it happened to that person, but I think they underestimated the effect that that had on others who
Witnessing it.
actually were witnessing it, and others who saw it happen. Um, because it just, I've been working at other places before. I've used my FMLA. I've been out of work before for 4 months, before for 6 months, before for 2 weeks, all for my personal health. And it was with peace of mind, where
Yeah.
I have my director sending me a text message when I was like, I got the call. I'm on my way to Georgetown to receive my kidney. And his text message was like, whatever you're doing right now, do not think about this place.
That's really nice.
Do not think about this place. Everything is going to be fine. You are going to be fine. Do not think about us. This is going to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
And that next day, I was like preparing for a huge proposal. There's a meeting set. There are C-suite people that are on this. And all of those people emailed me wishing me well for my surgery.
Yeah.
You understand?
It's a
So I
different
know it's a
culture.
different energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I went out on maternity leave and she texted me to tell me that she was leaving,
Mm.
between my pregnancy hormones
Oh.
and the devastation of losing an amazing person, I went off. I literally, I don't even remember what my Facebook post said, but I posted. I
Wow.
posted and I posted, and it was
What did you
scathing.
say?
I can't remember what it said, but
Oh, we should pull it up. Just kidding.
it was just, I may look for it and send it to you as
Yeah.
supporting for this, but I don't ever remember doing anything like that. I don't ever remember posting anything like that about an employer. Um, but I was hurt by what happened to her. I was very hurt by what happened to her. And it was confirmation that this wasn't a safe place for me. It could be a safe place for other people that
Hmm.
don't have unique needs. But me, as a person with unique needs, I didn't feel safe there. And
Yeah.
so I started rethinking my career and was like, do I even want to be an AmCare pharmacist in 2 more years? I don't think
Yeah.
so. What do I
It
want
makes
to
you
do?
think about, yeah, it makes you kind of rethink about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think for me, the moment I realized that maybe my employer doesn't have my best interest in mind, or maybe not my employer, but my direct supervisor, which is very
Yeah.
important person,
It's so
right?
important
And
person.
as we're talking about this, I think that that moment I had like a little bit of a pink flag. You know, there's like red flags, but there's like a little pink one. Like very much in the beginning of when she first started, because I started before her and then she came in after me.
Gotcha.
And I had volunteered to go to like a residency showcase, local residency showcase.
Okay.
And it was me, her, and our three residents at the time. And I remember it was kind of like slowing down at the end of the showcase. So I went off to another booth because I recognized somebody and I wanted to say hi. And when I turned
Um,
around, they were gone. They
who
packed up
was
and
the
left without me. Yeah. And I remember one of the residents was like, oh, sorry. Like, not my supervisor, but one of the residents was like, hey, sorry we left without you and didn't even tell you. And I think that moment I was like, huh, that is weird. But I
That's
didn't think,
weird.
but that I didn't, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, right? She
Yeah.
just started. Like, I don't know. But that is very strange that she didn't even come and say, like, hey, we're leaving, just letting you know. I turned around, they were already gone. And I think that that was
Wow.
kind of maybe, yeah, that pink flag that really should have allowed me to see what would have happened much later in the future. But
Yeah.
everything kind of just fell apart during the pandemic. And I tell this story a lot, but there was just a lot of things that made me question my position and the loyalty to
Yeah.
the facility and all of this. But I remember this is a story I don't tell very often. I try not to think about it too much, but it is something that was very upsetting. So I'll just tell it anyways. Hopefully for the best.
I
um,
can't. It's your prefaces. They're so good. It's like it's just
um, I was working. So at this point, this was like the first wave of the pandemic. This was in 2020. It was the first wave. It was in the summer. The residents had already left, and typically in the summertime, we only have one clinical pharmacist taking care of the weekend. So it was just
oh,
me working during a COVID wave where we don't really know what's happening. I don't
oh,
really have additional help in terms of clinical practice stuff because the resident already graduated. So it's just
oh,
me taking care of like all these patients and two
yes.
ICUs. And I remember trying to get a hold of the ICU physician, and I was using the paging number, and I kept getting a call back on an ICU physician that wasn't even covering. He kept calling me back. He's like, "I'm not covering this weekend," and I'm like, "Oh, sorry. I don't know why paging is like sending it to you."
You.
So I reached out to the nurses and I was like, "Hey, I've been trying to get a hold of these ICU doctors all day. This is what I'm trying to do. Can you help?" And she was like, "All right, I'll just text the physician." So the ICU nurse was like, "Oh, let me
Offer.
just text the physician." So I'm like, "Cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool." Everything, was kind of being figured out there. I'm making these interventions that were very COVID specific. And I decided to, write down some of what had happened and pass it along to the ICU pharmacist just so that they're aware of like the discrepancy that I couldn't get a hold of the ICU physician. Mind you, it was
Yeah.
like a really busy weekend just because our COVID process hasn't been ironed out. This was like in June, and the wave was happening like maybe like 4 weeks before. So we're like in the middle of a freaking COVID pandemic wave, right?
Yeah.
And I get back to work on Monday morning, and my boss, my supervisor, walks into my office. Now, mind you, this woman doesn't go into my office, right? She doesn't. The only time that she does it is for more serious conversation or for like a deeper discussion on something, but it's not just like a fun, like, how's it going?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
she's just not that type of person, which is fine, whatever. She goes into my office and she's like, hey, by the way, like, just letting you know, we were told that you didn't reach out to the physicians, that you had asked other nurses to do your job for you. And, we're trying to like minimize nurses' work as much as possible. So, next time,
Oh,
instead
give
of
me
having
the
them text the
grace.
physicians themselves, you can ask for the physician's phone number and you can text the physicians, kind of thing.
Right. Because
And
I'm just hanging out. I'm just hanging out watching my favorite anime down here. And it's like this is just
yeah.
something I was doing today because I'm also just like
Right, because
hanging
I
out.
just want to check out, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I was, first of all, I knew that the nurses did not complain. Why? Because the nurses offered to text the
They
physicians.
offered.
And she came into my office being like, you shouldn't have asked them to do that. Like they complained about you. I
I hope
fucking
you
knew.
said I didn't,
I,
except I didn't.
oh, I knew she was lying. I knew she was lying. I knew that she was trying to make me look bad.
Yeah.
And at that point when she was in my office, I didn't know how to process it except for the fact that I was like, oh, I didn't realize that that had happened, or like that's the way that they had received the conversation. And I kind of like allowed the conversation to just like move
To
along. I was
just
like, all right,
go
cool,
along.
whatever. Thanks for the
Yeah.
information. But as I sat on it, I knew that nobody complained about me. I knew it because the nurses freely offered to do that for me. And I
Yeah.
just knew that she decided that, like, me doing that is against the whatever. It made the department look bad, whatever it is that was in her head, and decided she was going to come into my office, sit me down after I had covered the entire hospital on my own, no
By
additional
yourself.
help during a
Yeah.
COVID pandemic. You would think that they would provide me with some additional help. No, even though it was
Yes.
the pandemic, no, none of that was happening. And I was so upset that I called her and I was like, you know what? I don't know who told you what and what and what, but those nurses offered. And so I know for a fact that no one complained about me. And whoever that was complaining about me, I would like to speak to them. Like, who was it? Who
Yes.
who do I need to talk to here?
Good for
I
you.
also said, you know, I tried contacting the ICU physicians all day and I kept receiving the wrong doctor calling me back. So that's not my fault. You should have given me the proper resources to work a pandemic weekend. Like, I was not
Yes.
given proper resources. I was not told that on Friday afternoon when people were leaving that I should be texting physicians. I kind of like went off, but I really, at the end of the day, I was advocating for myself. But
As
I
you
knew at
should.
that moment that I could not trust this employer or the
Yeah.
supervisor. Like,
Yeah.
she did not have my back, and
Yeah.
she was just trying to use me as a scapegoat for whatever that they're
Whatever.
trying to do. And since that moment, I was like, I cannot trust her. And not only that, after that, I started like documenting a lot of emails that she would send out,
Yes.
praising certain, pharmacists, doing certain
Yes.
things, giving
Yes.
praises to certain people,
Yes.
and ignoring others. And I started
Yes.
saving all that shit because I was like, no, 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 you do not come after me. Like, I was so angry because of anything that
Yes.
you can give me feedback on. My integrity is not something that I
No.
take lightly.
It's
And for
not
you
on the
to,
table. Pause.
no.
That's not on the table. That's never going to be on the table. You want to come after me because of a knowledge gap, because of an error I've made, because of let's have a conversation about how I can function at a higher level and better.
Mm-hmm.
Even though all of the resources I need have been made available to me, I'm not delivering. I'm open to that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. But this idea that who I am, how I show up, and my integrity,
Mm-hmm.
that
Passing
that
off my
is
work,
on the
apparently.
table
Yeah.
for discussion, for comment, for no, it is not today. It is not tomorrow. Wake me up in 5,000 whatever. It's still not on it's still not on the menu.
Yeah.
And I just think that like when you're fresh out of school and you're just coming out, there is nothing more scary than clearly delineating and setting those boundaries and telling a
Mm-hmm.
person like, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you were told. Maybe if you can share more information with me, I'm happy to have a conversation about that. But I can tell you that what you just described to me, that's not how it happened.
Yeah.
That took years for me to have the
Oh,
confidence to do.
totally. I mean,
To
I was, and
no,
I had the pressure of that pandemic to make me that angry though. Like, I think if it
exactly.
was another situation, I'd be like, okay, I'm just gonna like let that slide. But I
Exactly.
just could not do that anymore. Of the fact that like
Oh,
you expect me
so
to do
true.
all of these things without the proper resources and then complain to me that I am passing off work. And I'm like, you, and like have the audacity to tell me that somebody else complained about me when I know and like for a fact that that did not happen. And she was just like, well, you know how ICU people are. And I'm like, I don't
No,
care. I don't
I
care
work
how
in the
ICU people
ICU.
are.
I know how they work.
They should not
Two,
behave like that.
no.
Don't pass off like your mishandling of the situation to other people. You've
Yes.
mishandled the situation completely. You should have gone into
Yes.
my office and asked, "Hey, I noticed that other nurses had to text physicians for these things. What happened? Like, how can we move forward?"
Yeah.
Damn. Oh my God. It was
You
just
had
so
no
simple.
interest. You had no interest
Like
in
somebody,
my side of the story.
no
You pretty
interest.
much came in and just wanted
Assumed.
to FYI me in on the fact that it's not okay that I'm passing off work to nurses who are overwhelmed because
Yeah.
I was down here having cookies and creams, ice cream my entire shift.
I don't
You
really like
understand?
cookie and
Like,
cream, but
it and it's like what you got against cookies and cream ice
I
cream?
don't like it. I
We're,
don't like it.
we have a problem. Okay, pause. Okay, pause. Let's right click.
It's too sweet.
Let's right
It's
click
like you already
on
have a
that.
chocolate cookie and you're gonna put chocolate chips in there. Come on.
Yeah.
No,
What is your
it's
point?
too much. Okay.
What
If
are
you're
you
on my
talking about?
side, if you're on my
That's
side, write it in the comment
that's like
below. I don't like it. My sister loves cookies and cream, so like
thank you. Hey,
my sister's
younger
Hannah.
Thu, because I know that she's also Thu.
Yeah.
Your idea, your idea to also name her Thu.
Yeah.
You're my person. Someone else up in here
Yes.
has been dethroned as my person. You know, like,
Uh,
no, but Thu, like, that makes me so angry. Cause like the other thing that like, so let's say there's the experience I witnessed, right? That experience has happened. I go out on maternity leave. I'm out for 5 months and I come back and there's this weird energy around work. Like it's just really, really weird, but nobody wants to address it.
oh.
And it's like every time I try to address it, I just get this elusive response, elusive.
What did
And
it feel like? Like, what do you mean? Can you describe like
the work
this
well
tension?
the work dynamic had changed, right? I came back and there was a shift in there was a change, like somebody else was now assigned to manage my clinic and I pretty much had to train that person, and I clearly expressed my dissatisfaction directly with my director at the fact that there's no one better postured to manage this clinic than me. No one. Bring them in, hire them internally. There is nobody better postured than I am, and no one can give me a really good idea as to why this happened, and I wasn't offered it. It wasn't until my exit that I kind of got a lot of clarity around how some of those decisions were made. I felt like I was absolutely being retaliated against because of my post,
Oh,
a
yeah.
Facebook post. That's why I have to go find it for you so that you can kind of
That's
understand
why I
like,
was like, that's very ballsy for you to still work
oh,
there and then put
I
that
did.
post out.
I did put the post out. And during
Yeah.
my exit interview, that's when they decided to bring up the post. And that's when
Ugh.
uh-huh. And that's when I did something I'd never done before because I said in that exit interview
Oh
as
my
like,
gosh.
there is not a single thing in that post I would change. There is
Yeah.
not a single thing in that post I would change. And if you go search my Facebook page today, the post is still there. I will never take it down.
You should print it out, frame it.
I should and post it as a gentle reminder of the one time that I had a courage to actually speak my mind.
Yeah.
But it's the first place that I have left where I I left sad, not angry. I left sad, which was surprising because it was a sign that I genuinely cared about what I was doing there. That place had so much potential to really, really disrupt and make big moves in that community. And I wasn't afraid to take those big swings. But I knew that I also couldn't stay there because I was no longer safe. I wasn't safe. I didn't feel safe. I didn't trust anyone. I didn't feel safe. Like
I
I
know.
just
I fully like know what you mean. It's such a weird feeling. I mean, we're going to talk about our moving forward and quitting and all that, but like now that I'm in a new position, I it's like I'm no longer in that like fight or flight. But when
Yes.
you're in a fight or flight all the time, you feel like it's just like part of it. But
Yeah.
now that I'm removed from it, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I used to always be on edge. When somebody like reaches out to me for something or I'm interacting with certain people, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's so true. I left that job and went to do my fellowship at Howard and had the single most amazing professional experience I ever had. I've never felt more supported, seen. And I know that people say that a lot, like being in an environment where people do look like you, that helps. But this was different. This was an effort to create a psychologically safe. I was psychologically safe here. I was doing a fellowship, learning about research more intensely. That was a true knowledge gap for me, but I've never been more comfortable to just say, I don't know, and never even feel like, oh my
My
God,
God.
oh
Yeah.
Lord, they're going to be like, what did we do? What does she mean she doesn't know? She's been a pharmacist for 8 years. My God, where did
Yeah.
she train?
The
Who trained her?
attitude that
The
some people have
attitudes.
when you say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't know something," they're like,
How could you
"What?"
not
Or
know?
like they give you that dirty look and you're like, "What? You don't know stuff either." Don't BS me.
Mean? You never heard the I don't know before, but I credit and I think it's why I thoroughly enjoyed my year at Howard the way I did because it was just for the first time you hear people say, "Oh, you need an advocate. You need an advocate. You need someone who's going to bring your name up in the room that you don't even know exists."
Oh, that's nice.
And I never ever knew. I always listen and I'm like, yeah. And I'm in my head and I'm just like, where are these people and how do I get myself one? Like,
You know what? You know what's so crazy is like one time I was in I was just interacting with a resident. And she turns to me but before she left the office and she's like, "Oh, by the way, one of the doctors brought up your name during a meeting and she said you're doing so great, blah blah blah." A resident told me that,
yeah,
not my supervisor, not
yes,
anybody else, none of the pharmacists that were sitting in that room told
yes.
me. It was a resident that was
See?
like, "Oh, guess what? Someone said something really nice about you." And I was like, "Well, thanks, but like good to know, you know?" But
Yeah,
like, isn't that so wild that
it's
like
wild. They, and if you, and this is where we talk about this a lot here, right? Like, we have to start breaking some of the chains. We have to start breaking some of the chains. Like, because I don't know what it's like for someone to bring my name up in the room when I'm not there. It doesn't mean that I don't do that for other people that I know are deserving of it. Right? Like I make it my business, like when I'm engaging with other pharmacists that are working on unique project, if I know of a student pharmacist that's good with graphic designing, when we were starting out, I'm like, oh, one of my students,
yeah.
Ashley, she's really good. She creates all
Shout
these
out to
templates.
Ashley.
Shout out, Ashley. She'll create all these templates for us, and all we do is just edit them for our post and stuff like that. I have made it my business to bring up other people's names. Like I just joined Women in Pharmacy. I'm joining the communications committee. You can bet your bottom dollar everybody's gonna know who Thu is on that committee. I'm gonna be telling them
Aw.
all of these promotional graphics for all the events that we are organizing. We should really talk to her. She's so creative. She's gonna
Uh,
but we have to do that.
yeah,
We
we
have
have
to
to.
break those chains. Like if I'm in rooms and spaces and people are talking to me about collaborating on things and it's about pushing their vision, pushing their voices and marketing and stuff like that, I know that I have good ideas, but I also know that you are so much more creative in that space and thinking outside of the box than I am. And that stems from the fact that it took me years, professionally, years to experience that. I'm walking,
Yeah.
oh, you're the new COE fellow. I've heard so much great things about you. Oh, the our department chair, she's so excited that you're here for this year and all
That's
these different
really
things.
nice.
Do you
Like,
know
talk
what that
about building
feels
somebody up,
up?
you know?
Do you have any idea like what that feels like, and for you to experience that for the first time after 8 years of being out, like not as a learner, but you're out there
Mm-hmm.
grinding, proving yourself, doing things, and you get to this place, and within a matter of a couple of months, people are happy to finally put a name to the face at a meeting you weren't even cool enough to get an invite to.
No, but your name, if your name is still kind of circulating in that
Yeah,
circle, that is the second best thing that can happen
it
if you're not in that
really
room.
is.
I think I told you this one time from like a previous episode that we recorded that I never really felt like I had women supervisors supporting me, especially even women of color, especially
Yeah,
even Asian women supervisors.
yeah.
I've never experienced that before. And I would say
Wow.
that like the only time that I did feel any kind of support were with like more of the white men supervisors. And I'm sorry, but I
Crazy.
have to
Yeah.
be honest about that if
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
breaking it down and organizing everything. I also had a really great two really amazing program directors, PTY1, PTY2, and they're both white women. So if I'm breaking
Wow.
down all of these things, the people that I had a harder time with, I didn't really feel a lot of support, that I never heard my name mentioned in a great
Yeah.
positive way in a meeting or anything, would be my women of color supervisors. And I don't know if there's like a psychological thing behind that, but that is just
Yeah.
my experience in 10 years that
Yes.
I've been practicing. And I have to
And
be honest
and
with that.
that is no less valid than the person who's had the opposite experience. That's your truth,
Yeah.
right? But it also like back to that point of listen, all your job is to keep an eye out and recognize when you have a supporter on your team and you have an advocate on your team, recognize it early because it's not given. It's not given. You've been at this 10 years and you're talking about how there's still some of these supportive experiences and things that you haven't experienced. I was out 8 years before I knew that that was a thing that I would get, that that's the type of support that I would get in my workplace, right? Um, and I know we have a lot of new practitioners that listen to us and some students who listen to us and stuff like that. The reason why Thu's gonna comment on this in a second, but the reason why we talk to you guys about like what has been pretty, what has been ugly, what has just been like, what in the actual fuck? I'm sorry, like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I don't know why you always get all so excited every time like I drop the F bomb, but the reason why we are so adamant that we talk about these things, it's because I genuinely believe that there is no way that we are the only two people that have
We're
experienced this.
not. And I always say that too. But
There is no way.
yeah.
But somehow we are the only two people. We found our voices and we continue to have the courage to share it.
But
But
I
as
mean,
you
the courage is, like I said, I'm scared to share some of these things
share, right?
because you
Yeah.
always get told, like, oh, pharmacy's a small world. You're never going to find another job. And I've kind of decided in this state of where I am, I'm like, if I never find another pharmacy job ever again, that's fine. My student loans is almost done. I'm out. Like, if you're
I'm
gonna
out.
kick me out, then I'm out. Like, do you know how many other jobs and professions there are that I can potentially do? Like, don't
Yes.
threaten me with that. That's a
Yes.
threat. That is a
It
threat.
is a threat.
In
It
fact,
is a
like to be
threat.
like, oh, you're never gonna find another job. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, let's see how it
Imagine that.
goes. Yeah.
Imagine that. Like, but it's and I remember the very first post that I ever had on LinkedIn that had more than I think it's 15 likes.
Uh
My LinkedIn game is not on your level, but you know what I'm saying?
huh.
I was just like, oh, 60 people like my post, get out of here, right?
Yeah.
But it was the post where I said, stop weaponizing the phrase pharmacy is a small world,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Oh, that's weaponizing. Yeah, I love
Right?
that phrase.
It's
Terminology. Yep.
weaponized. It's
Yeah.
weaponized. That was supposed to be our superpower.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we are small, the fact that like I could meet through who lives in Arizona and then I'm at a meeting in Texas and someone's like, I went to pharmacy school with Thu. I know who she
Oh
is,
my gosh.
right? It's like that connective tissue, the fact that like
Hmm.
we are
We
never
are
so far
connected.
removed is supposed to be our superpower. And somehow it has turned into this weapon that is constantly used to remind people of their place in that you're not
It's
as big
holding
as,
people accountable.
thank you.
It's holding people accountable.
Thank
Like
you.
you only feel comfortable doing this because you think that this is going to be kept a secret within the department, within this facility.
Thank
That's it.
you.
And I think if people are more aware of like, people are gonna, like if they feel upset enough, they may report this.
Yes.
You will watch yourself more. You're like,
Yes.
ooh, is what I'm doing appropriate? Is what I'm
Yeah.
saying, am I being fair or whatever it might be? But
Exactly.
I do want to switch
Ooh.
we're going to switch to a different topic here. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about the steps leading to you telling people you're quitting and the decisions that you made to say, I'm going to go do something else, apply for it, and
Yeah.
then get it.
Get
So
it.
we'll be right
It's
back. It's going to be a good one. Okay, guys, we are back. And let's hear why you decided, like, how did it all fold out, right? Like, how
yeah.
did you decide fellowship? I'm going to apply here. I'm going
Yeah.
to quit. I'm going to tell people. Take it
Yeah.
away.
Oh my goodness. So I had a conversation and then I was told straight up that for the next 3 years, I wouldn't be promoted. The opportunity for a promotion would probably not be available for the next 3 years. And I'm thinking in 3 years, I'd be out of pharmacy school more than 10 years. And this is what I'm doing. Absolutely not. That activated me in a way that even watching the other person be mistreated or coming back to a weird work energy, that activated me in a completely different way. Right there and then, when I left work that day, I came home, I drafted an email and activated my network. I told everybody. I told everyone. I
What did you
attached,
say?
I said to them, I remember the title. I remember the title. It's time for my monumental pivot.
Oh my God. What a hook. What a hook. I would click on that like in seconds. I would be like,
Some of these people that opened the email and they responded to me, the most common first line of their email was like, okay, a bit dramatic. Like
that was not.
everybody. And like some of the people were like, you really are so extra. You didn't need to be that extra. Like you're talking like you're leaving pharmacy and going on to do something else completely. Like, girl, you could have just said, I'm looking for a job. And we would have opened it all the same. Like,
But would she really be silly if she did that though? No.
I had to do something for this email to hit your inbox for you to be like, say what? Right? So,
For you. That's smart. Okay, that's tip number one. Be
yeah,
dramatic.
be
Tip number two,
dramatic with
go.
your hook because that's what they're going to open the email for.
There you go.
And I was very sincere in the email with why. I told them like the lack of vertical advancement coupled with the fact that my interests as a pharmacist have shifted. I'm becoming more interested in health policy, health equity, and how I can use the intersectionality between clinical practice and program designing. So these were my interests. If there's a fellowship, if there's an apprenticeship or direct employment, and for employment, I was looking for supervisory roles or better. I was very specific about because I wasn't interested in going somewhere else to start from the ground up. At this point, if I was going to leave where I was, I needed something where I was going to come in at least at supervisory role or better. And people emailed back. Some of them were like, okay, well, I'm sending the CV out to everybody I also know. And the email was really great. So I'm going to also copy the email in there. And the opportunity at Howard came about as somebody I went to pharmacy school with who teaches there said that they have a program that is very personalized And if I'm looking for an opportunity to learn with a person who has a lot of research experience, she's not a pharmacist, but she's trained a lot of pharmacists, and she will be able to help me learn and grow. And if I'm interested in academia, like it was just like all of my passions were like kind of aligning perfectly. And I interviewed and I told my sister, I was like, I'm actually going to be sad if I don't get this offer. But
That's a good sign that you
that
care enough about it. Yeah.
I did. I was like, I'm gonna be sad. I was like, I'm gonna be sad if I don't get the offer, because I really I loved my director. I talked to her, and everything that my friend had told me about her, I could feel from the Zoom call. And when I met her in person, I was like, she's so nice. This is so different. She's not intimidating. It's like, um, but yeah, my process that day, and I sent that email with, I think it was exactly 7 days to that email, I put in my 2 weeks. Like it was just,
So you never hesitated. Like you
I
were like,
didn't.
I'm out.
I'm
Yeah.
out. I was I was suddenly overcome with this clarity.
Okay.
There was this moment.
Do you
There
feel
was
like there was moments before that that you felt like, should I go? Should I leave? Should I stay? Did you ever like, fight with yourself about that? Or was it very much like
mm,
one thing happened and then you're like, I'm out?
yeah, and I found myself on this downhill
Okay. So you
cascade.
never turned
Um,
back. You never looked
I
back,
never turned
basically.
back from it, because like it was so clear. The uncertainty wasn't whether or not I should leave. The uncertainty was what's next.
And
What's
did you
next?
tell anybody during this whole process that you work with? Did you let anyone know
No,
around you? No. Okay.
no. They were all very surprised because they thought I was very happy and loved my role, which were all true.
Yeah.
Which were all true. My role had nothing to do with why I needed to leave. I
Right click right there. That's what you always say to me. Can you,
not the right.
oh my God.
I
So
can't.
weird. But can you talk about that being content with the
Yes.
role, but wanting
Oh,
to move on? Like, what does that feel like?
oh,
Because a lot of times we hear people like, I hated it. It was so horrible. It was
oh,
toxic. I don't like it there. And that's why
no.
I had to go. But in
Nope.
your case, it was like, I liked the
I
patients I
did.
worked with. I liked the work that I was doing, but
Yes.
it was time for me to go. Like, that's a different perspective.
It's a it and it's what made the departure sad, because I knew that I was so blessed to love what I did. That was, I was very acutely aware that not everybody actually comes to work and they love what's about to happen. I opened my referrals and I'm like, what? What and what? Oh, I can't wait to talk to this patient.
Oh,
Or the
that's
patients,
amazing.
right? Like patients leave me a voicemail like, I only have 4 days of medication left, and my insurance company is saying that they're not going to pay for it again. Listen, Sally, if you don't do something, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, so first up, I need to call United Health. We're in a fighting mood today. What do I need to do? But my patients, they needed me, and I felt like I wasn't in this toxic relationship of like, my patients need me, like without me they're screwed. But I was genuinely doing things that my patients appreciated. They had nothing to give me but seeing them staying out of the hospital,
You were
and then
saving lives,
I was
straight
doing what
up.
I could.
I mean, you did your best, obviously, but the work that you're
Yeah,
doing is not just like superficial. Like
yeah,
you're
it
changing people's
wasn't.
lives sometimes.
i
That is
i
a huge
loved.
motivation.
It
Yeah.
really was. I loved what I did, and found a lot of meaning in what I did. So to leave that, like to say that that was no longer enough to keep me there, that was that was hard, but I also became so clear because I never wanted to just become complacent and settle. You are telling me to my face that for the next 3 years, I will not ascend beyond this. What? Absolutely not. And I think like the entrepreneurial spirit was also like where that fire in my belly was, where in 3 years, I see Resi Prep, this podcast, my tech company, see myself in 3 years doing big things.
You
But
guys,
you don't see
she's
me.
gonna meet the president. I don't know who the president's gonna be, but she's gonna meet him.
It's like meet the president. But you don't see me doing anything big here. I
Yeah.
couldn't live with that.
That's phenomenal.
I
Honestly,
couldn't
I
live
can
with
relate
that.
to that so much too,
Yes.
because to be honest, like when I think about the job, and of course I was, complaining a little bit about not feeling supported, but at the end of the day, what I was doing was really nice. Like, I got to work in an acute care setting, which I love,
Love.
and
Yeah.
I was the work that I was doing was helping people. And
Absolutely.
I never experienced like where I couldn't get out of bed and go to work or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like I never felt I was burnt out because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
but I never necessarily felt like a burden to be there. Like there was
Yeah.
nothing that was like causing me so much stress that I was like unable to eat or like the really severe side of things. So I never experienced any of that. But I think I experienced the same thing. I went to the supervisor who I mentioned, who I just never felt any support. I was asking her, like, is there anything that I can do to gain more experience on the admin side of things? And it took her a really
Mm.
long time. Like, I had to be like, just give me anything. And it took her a while to figure out, like, a meeting for me to go to. And even then, she showed up. So, I was just observing, basically. So I kind of already felt like, okay, I don't think she has my back in terms of this, like, this corporate climb. And
Yeah.
I was also looking at her and I was like, I don't know if I want her job at all.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it was something that I wanted. And so I was kind of in a rock and a hard place of like, well, what do I want? Because I obviously
Uh-huh.
don't want to stay in this position for the next couple of years. I want out, but I have no place to go.
Got
And
you.
that was a really hard thing for me. And that was when I was like, I feel really stuck because I didn't know what to do. And really, the only way to get out of being stuck is just to start doing something,
Yes.
right? Just to
Yes.
start.
Yes.
And I think I started looking for jobs. And unlike you, I was not like I need to be in a supervisor position. I didn't really want that. I was okay with like there's a vertical, but there's like a horizontal move,
Yeah.
right? Is that the right term? um,
Yeah.
or lateral? I don't know. You know what I mean? It was just like
It could be what we want it to be. Period.
okay, I go over there. And
Yeah.
then, so I didn't mind just going into another position, being a clinical pharmacist and just learning a different health system or learning a different role. I
Yeah.
just wanted to do something else. I wanted to
Yeah.
learn more. I want to be challenged. And
Yeah.
like for me, doing something different is a challenge because now I'm learning a whole new system, learning new
Yeah.
people, I'm learning a different role. And I was wanting that. I just needed to be challenged in my life. I wanted to wake up and do something more than what I'm doing now. And so that was when I started applying to a bunch of different jobs. And I was looking into transitions of care jobs. I was looking
Yay.
at AmCare even. And I was starting to use LinkedIn as like a networking opportunity to meet people and have them refer me to, hiring managers or whatever. So
Yeah.
I was in a way really cool of bypassing a lot of the steps of like applying and then waiting for them to reply. Like I was
Absolutely.
being directed to like very specific people. And I even got a meeting with like a chief medical officer
Yeah.
at a like a entrepreneurial company, I guess.
Okay.
It was really cool to just like go straight to the person who wanted to like hire you and be like,
Yes.
"Hi, this is what I do. This is my background,
Mhm.
whatever." So it was a really cool thing just to see what it's like to try out, you know, um, applying for different places, just like branching yourself out, basically, is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to explain here. And eventually, one of my friends who works at the facility I work now, he's like, "Hey, they're looking to hire, and would you be interested in applying?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I mean, you said that you love what you do, and I knew it was going to be another clinical acute care position, but I also knew it was going to be different. It was at a teaching
Yeah.
hospital. I'm going to be interacting with residents and medical, like physician attendings and all this stuff. And
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be something new for me to learn. So I was willing to take that chance of like, okay, this is not necessarily like a step up, but I'm willing to just learn something new and see what
Different.
else I
Yeah,
can do there.
absolutely.
And I don't know. I think that what I learned too, though, is when I did end up going to that new position, I realized that the grass is not greener on the other side. It kind of like a little bit
Facts.
opposite of you. I think you had a really great really great experience in your
Yeah.
fellowship. I learned that going from one health system to another, that the grass is not greener.
Yeah.
But what is better is that it might fit what your needs are more. And
Absolutely.
you're willing to tolerate maybe some of the deader grass
Yeah.
for like what you want in life. Like the
It's
brown
your
stuff that's like
it's your
crispy.
description of things that just sent me straight.
But it's like what you're willing to tolerate, because just because you move job doesn't mean that all your problems goes away,
Nope.
but you're exposed to just new opportunities. And I think the new
Yes.
opportunities is just like something that I've wanted, you know, not feeling
Wow.
stuck, getting
Yeah.
to learn new things and see
Yeah.
what else can this thing
But
give me. And what I also learned too is that like not only did I leave something that was no longer fitting me, I moved into a place where I felt like, okay, people are just more, they respect being fair, like a fairer
yeah.
workplace. I don't know if that's the right
Yeah.
term, but, and I just realized that I just feel like I have more support here versus
Yeah.
the other place. And the
And let me
pay
tell you,
is
let me
better.
tell you something. More support. I don't care how dead this grass is, we're gonna learn to love it.
We can
Like
water
we're
it
just
together, right? We
we
can
can
give it,
thank you. And like that's the attitude. It's like
yeah,
they don't like that you're not as green as the grass over there. Let's work on you.
yeah.
Right. But even being in a different space, it can sometimes it has a really strange way of re-energizing you and re-energizing your outlook about where you are. The patients you didn't have at the previous place, this new place, something could be different about it where it could unlock a new skill,
Yeah,
a new interest. I
yeah.
tell people, I know that there's an advice out there. If you're staying in the same job for more than 5 years, you're losing money. That's like a very common advice or career advice that's out there. But in my really young career and what I've experienced so far, if I land somewhere that is meeting my needs, that gives me the flexibility I need to be able to not be well and not be scared about my job and the security of my job and how I'm going to contribute to my household, I'm gonna ride that wheel to the I'm gonna ride that car to the wheels fall off. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna give that up without some certain terms and things also being able to step into that role because it's very hard to find. It's
Hmm.
really hard to find supportive work environments, supportive supervisors, supportive administrators. It's not
But
easy, and
when
that's unfortunate.
yeah, but when you find people who support you, they know that these are your goals and they're gonna try to help you get to that versus
Absolutely,
telling you like, oh, that's not gonna happen,
it's
sorry,
not
you
gonna
know?
happen.
Or like
Mhm.
taking forever to like give you opportunities
Yeah,
to climb the ladder. I
yeah,
think that that's why like a supportive supervisor or direct supervisor is so important.
so
But
important.
you know, I had to I learned quite a bit from just kind of deciding, like making that decision. I think I did kind of teeter back and forth, and then it just hit me like I need to go. I need to
Yeah,
leave.
yeah,
And once you make that decision, it's like you're out. And I think
yeah.
it's really scary because I think I might have told this story before. I asked some people, and that's the opposite of you. I think too is like I did kind of ask the people that I trusted who are working around me. And I'm like, what do
Mm.
you think? How should I approach this interview? Like blah blah blah.
Oh,
And I think because they were so used to staying in that facility for a long time that they were like, well, why are you leaving? Like, you shouldn't
oh,
leave. Stick it
yeah.
out, blah, blah, blah. You know?
Have you ever heard of a concept called quiet quitting?
Yes, that
Yeah.
became a big thing
Yeah.
during the pandemic. Yeah, people were
Well,
quiet quitting quite a
I
bit.
when I came back from maternity leave, I actually did quiet quit.
Yeah, I
I
think I
did
kind of did
quiet.
too.
I did quiet quit and thought that quiet quitting would be enough, would be enough. Like I thought maybe the above and beyond that you're doing cut out the above and beyond, revisit your job description and function strictly within the confines of that. And it didn't work. It didn't work.
What
I
was
was
your goal of that though? Were you hoping to quit or what?
No, I was hoping to coast at quiet
Ah,
quitting.
see, you
For
and I, we're not people who can coast because I've learned that the hard way too. I cannot coast. Do you understand?
I just
People at home,
wanted
do you
that to
understand?
work. I wanted.
That's the thing is like every time I go into a new position or whatever it is, I'm like, I am gonna coast. I'm just gonna
Yes,
chill here
yes,
for the rest of
yes.
my life. I'm just gonna be happy and be peaceful and just chill. And it doesn't happen. And I've had to accept that in myself of like, no, I'm somebody who needs to be constantly challenged or else I'm gonna
Yes,
get bored. And then I'm gonna
yes.
be like, what is the meaning of my life? You know?
Yes, yes. I actually had kind of resulted and said, I'm gonna quiet quit, and that's all it is. I'm leaving at 8:30. I'm coming in at 8, leaving at 8, 4:30. I'm not gonna stay because for how many years of that clinic, I work 10, 14 hours, 2 years straight to be
Yeah.
able to get technicians to come. I like I never, my hours were 32 hours a week. I never ever worked 32 hours a week, 40 hours plus, 50 hours plus,
Yeah.
right? And now I was not interested in it. I was coming 8:30, like
Yep.
literally clocking at 8:30, literally clocking in 4:30, and that was it. I never took lunch. All of a sudden, you would see me in the courtyard every single day. I'm taking my lunch break, right? I thought like I would quiet quit, but it didn't work. It didn't work for me.
What
It wasn't
happened?
enough. It
How
it
long did it
it wasn't
last?
enough. It
It
wasn't
wasn't enough.
enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough because it didn't take care
Did
of
you
that psychological
feel,
safety.
yeah. Did
It
you feel
didn't
like
take
there was
care
a
of that.
tension in your body, do you think? Do you feel any kind of tension of like your body's
Oh,
like, this isn't what you want,
this isn't
girl?
what you want. My mind. Or
Yeah.
I'd be working on a patient case and I'm like, this is the other reason where I knew that it was time to leave because I was now making decisions about how far to go for my patients. And that was not okay for me.
Yeah.
That was not okay for me. I was actually thinking like, you know, they only asked for me to fight for the Praluent. The Praluent's been approved. I'm good. But I've been reading this patient's chart. This patient needs to enroll with me. This patient needs to come in and see me. We need to talk. There's so much that I can help you with. Come get to meet me and stuff. And then I'll be like, but that would be me asking extra work. And then I'm like, but that's not you. What is
Yeah.
you is calling this patient, making the offer, having the patient say no, and then you follow up with a letter, trying to convince them,
Wow.
persuade them.
There you go.
Trust me, you want me on your team, sir. You want me on your team, right? And the moment that I saw myself that I was even second guessing my decisions to go above and beyond, I knew that like
Yeah.
I was now betraying myself. Like the pharmacist that I decided I'm gonna be, I was betraying her. I was satisfying my company obligations. I was showing up. I was working
Yeah.
while I was there. There were no requests being sent that I wasn't working on. But the above and beyond commitment that I made to my patients, I was thinking, do I want to do that? And that wasn't okay. That
Yeah.
was not okay. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
It was
Those
time.
are good, like, those are good markers for you to recognize, you know
Yeah.
what? I might be quote unquote content, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm not fulfilled.
No.
I don't think of my life as impactful anymore or my work as impactful anymore.
Yeah.
And these are things that I really value in my
Yes.
life. You know, I think sometimes I look at people who can't just coast and I'm like, I'm jealous. Kind of jealous.
Teach me your ways.
Yeah, how do you just not care?
I do just not
But
care.
you know what? Like the world needs people like us who
Yes.
want to do more. And I, for those of you who are listening to this podcast, you guys probably want to do more too if you're listening to
Yeah.
this podcast and you've
Yeah.
reached this point because you have
Absolutely.
to be honest with yourself, okay?
Yes.
This is the first step. Maybe this is the first tip. Whatever. Is to be honest with yourself. You are not a coaster. I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you, but you are not meant to just chill. I'm sorry.
Welcome to this side.
Welcome to the club.
We love
We've
Tanya.
tried.
Woo!
We've tried a coast and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel right. You lose your I don't know, not the will to live, but like you 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 just lose the motivation. You feel blah. You're like, what am I? You know?
Yeah, it's like that was
And
8 hours of all of the things I find absolutely uninteresting, but I did it.
yeah, it's time to rethink everything, guys.
Yeah.
And pack it up and go on the other side just like us. The grass is
Yeah.
not greener, but it
But you
might
can
be a
work on it.
better patch
Yes.
that you can take care of.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, do
Uh,
you have anything else to add before we conclude this episode?
no, I think we always conclude on a nice little takeaway. Takeaway. You just gave the takeaway. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great place to stop. We're just always grateful that you are here and that you stay to the end. We love
Yeah,
you.
seriously. We love it. Thank you so much. But again, thank you for listening. If this
Yeah.
episode speaks to you and you think others may benefit from hearing our stories, send this episode to them. This is going to help us reach more people.
Yes. This episode, like what, 24 others maybe by
There's a
this
lot
point?
of them.
Oh, there's a lot of them. You can binge, guys. We're coming up in the world, baby.
Yeah.
It is, they are all available on Apple, YouTube, and Spotify, or wherever you may get your podcast. You can connect with Thu and myself individually. Those handles will be linked in the description, as well as helping support our podcast page on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube.
Yeah.
We are close to our first 1K on Instagram. We cannot do it without you. Rate and review us. And remember, we are doing this for you, with you, and we appreciate your support like we appreciate it fully and thoroughly. Until next time, you cannot forget it. What? We got
We
this.
got this. Bye.
Bye, everybody.